on Campus Day. This program is a collaboration between the Office of Alumni Relations and the College of Food Innovation and Technology, and celebrates our alumni who are doing such great things in the industry. Joining us today, we have some amazing alumni working directly in the field, and we're so grateful that they've taken time out of their very busy schedules to be here. I know that you'll find their experiences and stories inspiring. I'd like to turn it over to Chef Stansfield, who will moderate today's discussion. Chef?
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to introduce myself. Chef Stansfield, or now I'm been promoted to Assistant Dean of the College of Food Innovation and Technology. I will begin by asking alumni a few questions. While they are speaking, please feel free to use the chat feature, and I will get to those questions at, I believe, 2:45. We'll address those questions. So please ask your professor to type in some questions and we'll get started. I'd like to have the alumni introduce themselves. Tell us what your major was while you were here, year you graduated, and currently what you're doing. And I'll start off with Stephanie.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm Stephanie Cmar. I graduated Johnson & Wales in 2007. I got a culinary associate's and a food service management bachelor's. I'm currently in Portland quarantining to start filming Top Chef Amateurs, where I'll be judging, which is super exciting. In my real life, because this is TV land, I'm a private chef in Boston. Wonderful, self-employed, super excited. I was a finalist on Top Chef All-Stars season 17, which just finished airing in June or July. I don't even know anymore. I've been in this room for a long time. But yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Excellent. If we could move to Jorge next, if you can introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jorge Cespedes. I graduated 2012, and I'm a culinary creative director for a big network of marketing agencies. And what we do pretty much is work on the marketing of food. Anything when it comes to creating campaigns, photo shoots, video shoots, a lot of social media, of course, right now, and events for our clients.
Very nice. Thank you, Jorge. Next, I'd like to introduce Chef Matt Jaffe. Can't hear you. You're on mute. All right, we'll go to Spencer. Spencer Cole.
Hey, everyone. My name is Spencer Cole. I graduated in 2010 and 2012, respectively, with a culinary degree and my master's from Johnson & Wales. Currently, I work for a company called Winston Industries. We are an equipment manufacturer that builds pressure fryers and holding cabinets and water vapor ovens. My role there is sales. My glorified title is Global Account Manager, and I manage South Pacific, Western US, all of Europe, and part of the Middle East.
Excellent. Thank you, Spencer. All right. I'd like to start off with Stephanie. If you could tell us, what was your first job after graduation and what kind of drove you into the position that you're in now?
Yeah, so my first job was I actually started the day of graduation from Johnson & Wales. So I never walked because we had to go pay off that student loans. Yeah. So I actually started at Top of the Hub as I was the assistant to one of the protein cooks. And I've had a really weird career. I'm not gonna lie. It's been a strange, awesome mix of taking a lot of risks. So from Top of the Hub, I went on and I was a sous chef at a restaurant with my best friend, Kristen Kish, who's also a top chef, or I don't know what you call us. And when she and I both decided to leave there, I started to work for Barbara Lynch, who is a huge Boston restaurateur. I worked in 3 of her restaurants, all as sous chefs, and then went on to be an executive chef of a restaurant. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And I'm not going to disguise that with like flowers and rainbows. It was not for me. So I left there and I became the pasta maker at another South End restaurant called SRV. So milled all the grains, made all the pastas, made all the fillings and whatnot. And in that time, I started cooking for a family. And through word of mouth, through doing a good job at my job, I got referred to other clients. And so now, even in COVID, I have 8 full-time clients, which I work for. And it's an absolutely incredible career that I truly love.
Excellent. All right, Jorge, how about you telling us what was your first job when you graduated?
So when I left Johnson & Wales, I was an R&D chef for a innovations firm that worked with QSR chains, and big manufacturers like Bush's Beans or Mission Tortillas. And what we would do is help them come up with ideas. So when a restaurant chain needs to come up with a new sauce for a burger, they get a group of chefs together and they do what is called an innovation session. And we all help, bring our experience together and come up with that sauce, always based on data and trends and insights. And then other times clients needed, like for Bush Beans, I would make a lot of recipes that would then be photographed and end up in their website. But one of the best things that happened to me, because that was a world that I didn't know even existed, that world of consulting for restaurants and big companies, I had no idea it existed until I left school. And it was scary, and you're nervous, and you're walking into all of a sudden this gigantic kitchen compound that belongs to a fast food chain and is full of chefs and professionals. And one of the best things that happened to me was I was paired up with a chef, an older chef, very experienced guy. And we started talking, and I said, I actually just graduated like 4 months ago. Like, I'm not in, I don't think I should be here. And once I told him that I came from Johnson & Wales, he was like, you don't have anything to worry about. You know exactly what you're doing. It's somewhere in there. Chill, go through your steps, and you're gonna be fine. And that really helped me calm down and just do my job. And it also, for the first time, because I was now out of school, made me feel very proud that I went to that school.
Thank you very much, Chef. Chef Matt Jaffe, how are we doing? Can you hear me? You just gotta unclick off the mute button. Try it now.
There we go. Now,
Excellent.
You hear me? Finally.
Tell us a little bit.
That's what a 4-year degree at Johnson & Wales gets you, learning how to do Zoom, huh? So a little bit about me. So I graduated in 2004 from the C4 program at the time. Most recently or currently I work for Darden. So I run the Capital Burger in Washington, D.C. We have another location in Reston, Virginia, and we're opening one in Boston in December. I think if I heard the question correctly earlier, what was our first job out of college? So I actually started right out of school. Graduation day came, and Chef Deladon asked me if I had anything going on for the summer. Chef Wallenberg was heading up the Hay Harbor Club at the time. And me, Chef Deladon, another one of our friends went out there for the summer and ran the kitchen out there. And our goal for that whole summer was basically to give Chef Wallenberg the easiest summer that he ever had and make sure that he got plenty of time to play golf. So that's what we did. And we really, we tried to run that kitchen as if it were our own. And, without, the education that we got for the 4 years, I don't think we would have been able to do that at the time, being a bunch of, young 21-year-old kids basically running a restaurant for the summer. So.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, Spence, how about letting us know what your first job was out of school?
When I finally left Johnson & Wales Providence, I found a little restaurant outside of Philadelphia that I was enamored with and decided to work there. Not to name any names at this point, but I got burnt out about 1.5 years in, working 100-hour work weeks, 7 days a week. Just sucked the life out of me. So I literally quit the job, took about 4 weeks off, moved to Baltimore, and after those 4 weeks, got a job as a busboy at a fish shack did not want to do anything, wanted no responsibility, but still needs kind of some money to sit on, to live off of. So I did that while I actually sought out a job that I wanted. And that drove me into the R&D field. And I worked for a small marketing and culinary agency for 2 years before I ended up with Winston Industries. And that was a unique job. The current job that I have was kind of a serendipitous encounter that I had while at a JWU alumni gathering in Chicago during the NRA. So continue with, networking, make those connections, and always talk to the people that are around you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right. Let's start the next question with Jorge. What would you tell the students of today about our industry? What's going on out there right now?
Well, my part of, I was telling somebody earlier, I barely cook anymore, but I live and breathe food. It's funny, it's all we do is come up with ideas and concepts that end up in a magazine or on somebody's social media about food and beverage. So my side of the industry is very unique. What I would definitely say is make sure you understand, make sure you leave school knowing what you're supposed to know. Like know your base, know your culinary. You're a cook and you're gonna learn and grow from there. I never thought I would end up not cooking. But I love what I do, and it's still very much involved in food. And I think I realized later that going to culinary school was just part of my path in this journey to become a storyteller related to food. And I think every recipe, every cocktail, every cappuccino you drink has an amazing story because there's a lot of people behind it. And now I get to tell those stories. So I think you leave school knowing that you got the education you needed to succeed. And from there on, get ready for one crazy ride.
Thank you very much, Jorge. All right, the next question is for Stephanie. In these current COVID crazy pandemic times, how do you balance the 8 families? Like, what have you had to change or shift during this pandemic?
Oh my goodness, so much. And on just about everything. And on top of the families that I cook for regularly, I also have, it doesn't have a name or anything, but we do a ton of catered micro events, micro weddings, you name it. I had to learn, I was cooking in people's homes. So I would go to the Whole Foods and then I would go to their house and then I go back to Whole Foods and I go to somebody else's house. And now everybody's home, I really don't have that luxury. So I actually basically rent out a space where I cook from. I have an Amazon delivery of plastic to-go containers every other day. It's incredible how much we use. Where when I was in their house, I was using whatever they had lying around. So I basically had to rebuild the pantry and do all this. But even crazier was that I've never been busier in my entire life, especially we're doing at least a wedding a weekend and it's just my husband and I. So he and I, through COVID times, have actually, he's a chef as well. We have created this small company and we were talking about social media and whatnot a little bit earlier. And I get all of my business from Instagram. So it's definitely, which you know, is crazy. I've just had to adapt. And that's something that I actually on paper hate doing. In actuality, I love doing. I haven't had to change what I cook or the quality of what I cook, but I have had to change those logistics. And if you aren't flexible, it won't work. So definitely. And I say yes to a lot of just about every opportunity that comes around. I don't say no very often. So I just continuing that and just making sure that because I'm still being paid and compensated the same amount. You know what I mean? So I just remember that what I do through food is I show that I care about the people I cook for, whether it's the first time I've cooked for them or I've cooked for them for 5 years. And that's the biggest part about being a private chef, is to remember that you're only as good as your last meal. It's just like a restaurant. So I take a lot of pride in what I do, and I spend a lot of time doing it. And it truly brings me joy. And I think that regardless of the current climate, which is kind of a fiasco, I would say, I just remember that cooking has been and will always be my passion and in my career and what I love. So I just keep myself remembering that. And I also know one day I won't live in a 600 square foot apartment up 4 flights of stairs carrying all those to-go containers.
Excellent. All right, Matt, Jaffe, how has the industry today, how has it shifted or changed the way you operate?
Oh, well, I mean, incredibly much so. I mean, especially with the current climate, right? So I run a restaurant for a large corporation. We were, or still are, kind of a one-off, right? We only have two, and third one on the way. But we are basically, I could throw a snowball and hit the convention center, which is across the street from our restaurant right now. So we went from doing roughly 3,500 guests a week, you know, huge numbers, to just under 1,000 a week now. And I would say a good third of that 1,000 is to-go business only. So we had to shift really everything that we did on a daily basis, just, you know, overnight, right? You know, March, I think it was, I don't know, 12th or whatnot, that we shut down our restaurant here. And I had to tell all my team members that they no longer had a position with us, you know, that we had to furlough them for an extended period of time. We didn't know how long that was going to be. And then we had to change from a full sit-down restaurant to just to-go orders only. So, you know, I think, and I've heard a lot of the other panelists mention this over the day, you know, this is really a time where, you know, it's extraordinary times and it calls for extraordinary leadership. And, you know, look to the students out there, and, you know, to other chefs and restaurateurs and other businessmen and women. I mean, look at the people that are around you, look at your instructors that are teaching you right now, and really pull from them, because they're going to be they're the best guidance for you right now. So that's, you know, I know that on a daily basis, I draw upon my mentors and what I gained from the university. And that's really what's kind of, you know, led our ship through this crisis right now. So.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Spencer, how has it affected the way you travel and go to all these different locations?
Yeah, I don't travel anymore, which was the majority of my job. So instead of demonstrating the equipment that we offer or the required trainings that go along with the technology that we sell globally, we had to redesign our materials so that they can be delivered over the internet. And it's a difficult, it is a very unique process, because all those little tricks and the tricks of the trade that we are in never really translate in content if you write it down or if it's delivered via web. Trying to describe how to check for temperature by touching or feeling, or the sight and smell of things, just like in cooking, really determines the final product. And translating that content and making it marketable behind our brand has been very challenging. And not to mention all the languages that we have to then translate from English in for a global program.
Right. Wow. Crazy. All right. We've been struggling with a lot of similar situations with when we have to flip, like if we have to leave or shut down for any particular reason, how we can transition that. And in the future, we're looking forward to sharing with our alumni some of the programs that we've built as far as online modules. So look forward to that in the future. I have one more question for the panel, and that's, what do you look for in your, if you're hiring somebody, a new employee, what is one of the most important things that you look for? And I'll start with Matt on this one.
So I'm looking for a couple things. I want to make sure that they have some goals in mind for their future. What is their goal by working for me? You know, what is their goal in 5 or 10 years? I want to make sure that when I'm sitting down with them, I can tell that they're humble. You know, there's nothing worse than having somebody who walks in and they're super cocky and they think they know everything in the world, right? You know, obviously I have a degree, all the other panelists have a degree, but there's so much that we can still learn and continue to learn on a daily basis. And then I want to make sure that they're going to show up. That's the toughest part. And I think I heard Stephanie mention it earlier today, where she got out of the industry or out of kitchens because people just weren't showing up, and she was working 5 or 6 different line positions on a daily basis. And that's the toughest part. If you guys commit to something, if you commit to taking a job, make sure that you come in every day and that you're early for that job, you're dressed for that job, you're ready to work, you're humble, and set goals. And those are the 3 things that I'm really looking for when I'm looking for people to join my team and when I want to grow talent in the restaurant and beyond.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So Stephanie, when you and your husband are booking all these weddings, what are some of the things that you look for when you need a little bit of help?
You know, with my husband, David, you know, I do, and this is the greatest part about working with him, one of them, is that I know where he lives. So he has to show up every single time. And that really, and I get to be in control, which is something that I absolutely love. But when we do have to, like we did a wedding on Saturday night, beautiful, like gorgeous wedding, 13 people, super safe. I guess I hire my friend, and I hire literally the most responsible person I know to lead the front of the house, because I have very, very little experience with front of the house. I can carry 2 plates and 2 glasses of wine. Like it's not something. Dining room class was an interesting time for me. But I look for somebody who I know is going to take it as a job. I also pay really well, and people are motivated by money, which is, you know, so I'm like, I'll give you $250 for 3 hours of your time. But I only hire people that I trust. And that's a great thing about being self-employed, is that it's not about filling a position, it's about providing a service. And that definitely was a great transition for me. And like Matt said, I said earlier today, when I was in restaurants, and I started in restaurants when I was 15 until like 2 or 3 years ago, I was in restaurants full time. Being self-accountable and having employees who take the accountability to provide their service, to provide delicious food or whatever else they do, to show up on time and just show up ready. It is what I found, and times have changed for sure, to be the hardest part with staff retention. And you don't realize that the chef is relying on you to be there and do your job. So I always look for people who I would be like, they're not just a body, because that never works, that they were a person with a goal in mind.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. We're going to go into I have some questions in the queue, and I've asked the first one to Spencer. What would you suggest to people who don't know where in the industry they would want to be once they graduate?
Don't worry about it. That'll fall into place if you're actually truly passionate with the industry. I was hell-bent on running a restaurant. I wanted to cook on the line. I wanted to do all of that. But obviously I'm actually at home right now, you know, on a Monday, and not behind the line somewhere, and I'm okay with it. But it didn't happen for one particular reason or another, but I just fell in love with the industry as a whole. I do sell restaurant equipment. Never thought I would sell anything. And I honestly, I'm not a very good salesman, but Johnson Wales prepared me with the operational knowledge of how restaurants are run, the flow of food, the ability to go into a kitchen, demo a very unique piece of equipment with CVAP cook and hold, or our pressure fryers that are built for KFC, and understand how the equipment works and present it in a very easy way to someone that doesn't have a food background. Don't worry about it, because it will fall into place if you do like the industry. You'll find a job that fits your personality and what you like. Part of what I like is traveling, and that's what, not right now, but that's what I've done. I've filled up 5 passports, booklets in the past 5 years. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we have another question. Here's a question from Chef Mellinson's class. Looking back at your time at JWU, what was the one class that made you who you are today? And I'll direct this one to Jorge.
Oh man, I got the tough question.
We will tell anybody what you say, Jorge.
I can't remember the specific name of the class, but it was a new program when I was there getting my bachelor's, and I think it was about sustainability. And I remember we went to like a chicken farm, and we went to see, to an oyster farm, and we saw how the guy was just pulling the oysters right out of the water, and he explained how the oysters had completely cleaned this bay in Massachusetts. And we went to visit all sorts of different farms, micro farms, urban farms. And to this day, it's something that is a big passion of mine. Everywhere I go visit these kind of farmers, and I'm always trying to find a way to help them somehow, connect them with as many restaurants as I can. I just love supporting local communities, and it all grew from that class. So whether or not you're taking that sort of class, I would highly suggest to go visit farms near the school, or 1 or 2 hours away. I would do that all the time with my friends and my roommate, and we would just find opportunities to, hey, can we help for 1 day here and learn what you do? You would find M.A.T grads running a farm in the smartest of ways that would blow your mind. And then just super passionate people that are really in the idea of bringing back the best kind of food we can get. So that was a class that to date is still affecting me.
Excellent. Thank you very much. The next question comes from Chef Houghton, Jeremy Houghton's class, and they have a question for Chef Cmar or Stephanie. What was the process of being a Top Chef contestant, and is it a realistic goal for current students to try for? Being on a reality TV cooking show, how has being on Top Chef helped or hurt your career?
Oh goodness, that's such a fun question. The process of getting on Top Chef was fate and luck and the willingness to say yes to the opportunity. Top Chef actually reached out to my chef, Chef Barbara, because they were having trouble casting. And then I did so bad. And I want you to know how traumatic it was, because I don't want people to think that it was daisies and everything. So I was on season 10 in Seattle, and I went with my best friend, Kristen, and I got kicked off in the first 10 minutes, and Kristen went on to win the entire thing. So it stabbed me in the heart. It was because this was cooking. This is what I loved. And it was an incredibly public format to show a failure. And then they called back the next year and they were like, you were funny and kind of nice. Like, do you want to do the New Orleans season? And I immediately said no, because I had actually demoted myself at my job, and went back to being a line cook for a little while, because I was like, maybe I don't know how to cook. But I did make a mistake, and I told my mother that they called again, and she told me to call them back and to tell them that I would do that. And I do. She's done everything for me. So I was like, I guess I'll try it. So I ended up back on the show. New Orleans was awesome. I got kicked off for somebody else's food. It gave me a very public face. So I went on to start doing donut pop-ups before pop-ups were really like a huge thing. And I made a ton of cash, ton of fun, super great. And then they called back for All Stars. And I was like, I'm a private chef that hasn't been in a restaurant for a really long time, but the opportunity was too great to not take. And I actually let my fear of being eliminated be the thing that pushed me as far as I could get. Just because I was reached out to, not me personally, but like suggested to Top Chef, doesn't mean that they don't read every single application that you have. And I know for Kristen, she has a restaurant in Texas. She she would recommend her cooks, because Top Chef does come to us and they're like, do you have anybody you would suggest to be on the upcoming season? People that Kristen and I have worked with in the past that have been incredible employees, incredible chefs, we actually push their names through. But you can get on the show just by applying, and you should. If it's something that you dream about, you absolutely should, because it does incredible things for your career. That being said, I'm one of a very small group of people who get the opportunity to be on TV, and it's not glamorous. The reward is glamorous. The reward, I mean, look at this wallpaper as I quarantine here in Portland. But anything's possible. You just have to take that initial step. If you want a Food Network show, start with an Instagram show. There's steps you can take to making yourself very visible, and you can't hold back because of your pride or your ego. You have to be a yes chef to get far.
Excellent. Thank you very much. This next question comes from Chef Molinelli. And it says, what kind of job experience should they seek as students while they're here at JWU? And I'll refer that one to Matt Jaffe.
Everything. I worked all through college. I worked at 3 or 4 different restaurants during my time in Providence. You guys have an incredible amount of talent in that particular city. So my suggestion would be to go on knocking some doors, tell them that you're willing to stage, you're willing to learn. And that's really all you can do. Have an open mind and grab as much information as possible. And even if it's not, at a restaurant, I know, all of the chefs up there run other things on the side, whether it be, a summer job or something that they're doing, a food truck or something like that. I know that there's plenty of clubs at Johnston & Wales, so get involved in all that kind of stuff as well. But I would say grab as much knowledge as you possibly can while you're there. You got 4 years and soak it all up. So definitely work. You guys have Fridays off, use the weekend to obviously study because you want to keep your good grades, but use that time to gain as much knowledge as possible.
Thank you. I have a question from Kelly, and whoever wants to begin, just start. It says, what is your biggest failure when starting in the industry, and what did you learn from it? Who wants to tackle that one? It doesn't have to be a failure. It could be, what was your biggest challenge? Let's do that one. Stephanie, did you?
Oh, my ego got in the way so bad. Not that I thought I was the greatest chef, but like when I started at Top of the Hub, I was told to do things, and I would literally do them my way, which is the worst way to be an employee. Don't do that. I remember even being in culinary school in my first class, which was like the intro knife skills course. And I was like, this chef's crazy because he thinks that I need to tuck my fingers in. Of course, I left with like 5 Band-Aids. So definitely like checking myself at the door and becoming more adaptable and an employee rather than the mindset of an employer.
Excellent. Anybody else want to address that question?
I don't know. It's just something kind of scary and funny that happened to me that I learned a lot from. But in my job, part of what I used to do a lot would be public speaking on behalf of clients to like 300 people, and I'd be doing a recipe and on stage, and you're mic'd and there's cameras, and I was doing this recipe, and I could tell it wasn't gonna work, but you have to fake it till you make it. So I was like, oh, don't worry, yeah. And I was like, this is gonna stick to this pan, and I need to flip it, and it's not gonna happen. And I was like, I normally flip it, but I'm not gonna flip it today. I remember shaking, like the words were leaving my head, and just I didn't check all of my stuff before. Like I didn't go through my mise en place list kind of thing. And it was my fault, because I should have seen that pan was gonna stick, my omelet was gonna stick to it or whatever it was. And it's one of those things that from there on, I would like triple check everything I needed, whatever the job is, just to make sure you're not, you know, surprised in front of 300 people or even 2 clients. But when you're in front of clients, things are different. So I would say, in a more general way, mise en place is very important in anything you do in life. Always double, triple check everything you need before you do anything. And that was the way I learned that lesson.
Excellent. Matt or Spencer, do you have a story you'd like to share with us?
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
I think mine came, a couple years after graduation. I was working in Manhattan as an executive sous chef, and this guy came in and, was looking for a chef to open up a restaurant. And I was, I thought I was some hot shot, and he threw a ton of money at me, and, being young, and I was like, I'm leaving. I had a great job at the time. I was really happy where I was, but I was like, this guy's throwing me a ton of cash. So I left, and I had heard terrible stories about this particular gentleman who owned a couple restaurants in Manhattan at the time. And I lasted a week. I was able to work with this guy for 1 week till I was, packed my knives and left, basically. And I think the lesson I learned there was never chase the money, chase the passion, chase what you're doing. And, since then I've always lived by that. And, I think it's gotten me to a place where I'm pretty happy now. So don't chase the cash.
Excellent. Spencer, you want to answer one?
Yeah, sure. I've been in a couple kitchens that have been pretty toxic. A lot of alcohol, a lot of drugs floating around the kitchen in the restaurant. Don't get your stuff stuck in those environments. However good those restaurants are, there's equally better restaurants, or equally as good or better restaurants that actually foster a much better environment.
Excellent. All right, this question's for Jorge and Spencer. How did you move from daily cooking responsibilities to pursuing a position in another area of the industry? And did the opportunities find you, or did you seek them out? Jorge, you want to take this one first?
Sure. So I was lucky. So my first job out of school was an R&D position for a marketing agency, where I was doing way more cooking than I'm doing now, because it's just very specific projects for clients. But from there, I realized, as I said earlier, that I love food, but I don't need to show my love of food through cooking. I love the story that food can tell. I think a photo does a lot of work. Video, which I do a lot of now, has a lot to do with that. And we can tell stories in many different ways. So I learned that there's a lot of marketing agencies and just consulting companies that focus on that sort of business in the food industry. And I started moving in that direction. Now, the fact that I'm a chef puts me ahead of a lot of people that want to do marketing but know nothing about food. And once you're in that industry, it's actually not as big as you think. So it's very easy to meet people and connect. There's a lot of events, which now are virtual and a bit harder to network, but you start to meet other chefs, you start to meet other marketers, and it's just, you make friends and you start asking for, I would say, if you meet someone or know someone, find them on LinkedIn and send them a message. Don't be afraid to do that and say, hey, I'm a chef, or I'm a culinary student. I actually really like the marketing side of things. I want to learn more about that. I'm interested in an internship maybe at your firm or your studio or whatever that is. And if not, can you refer me to anyone who's looking for help? And don't be afraid to send 100 of those messages, and maybe you'll get like 3 responses back, but those are the responses that will get you somewhere.
Excellent. Thank you. Spence?
Yeah, my jump was because I was disgruntled at the time. I just had enough, and I knew I wanted to start a family. I wanted, I have a 5-year-old now, and she's awesome. And I don't think that being in those environments would have been healthy for us as a family. Although I did change, I do travel a lot, and so my wife doesn't see me for half the year, which is probably a good thing. But for now, the way I got into it was just by asking around, talking to people I know, and I got it through Johnson & Wales. Simple as that. I befriended a number of people at the university, both instructors and peers, and asked what was next. What did they have? You know, it might not be something available at that moment, but you know, a year or two down the line, because you had that conversation with that chef or with that friend, that will pop up in their head if they deem you as worthy for it. So.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, this one comes from Chef Wallenberg. He says, not every student gets to work for him in the summer. So what, or the best job is what he says. Could you speak from your experience? How or why is it not always the best job to start out with, but how will any job develop your career? Who would like to take that one? Just do a virtual, well, just raise your hand, not a virtual hand raise.
I mean, I don't know if there's, I don't think there's any bad jobs, because any kind of experience is gonna teach you something, whether it's, oh, I definitely don't want to do that anymore, or, okay, yeah, that's not how you do that. Now, like Stephanie has 5 bandages on her hand, you know. But I think all jobs are worth it. I mean, I worked in a few restaurants when I was at Johnson & Wales there. I worked for a chef called Matt Jennings, and I learned so much from him. I'm still his friend. We still chat all the time. But that made me realize I didn't want to work in a restaurant. As much as he said, you're a great employee, I want to keep you, what do you want? And I was like, I want to get out of here as soon as I can. Is it one more week? Because I realized I have a personality that I want to be in front of people. I want to talk to people. I want to share ideas and share stories. And the back of the kitchen wasn't what I wanted. There wasn't enough of a passion for me to do that. But yet there's still classmates of mine that are running restaurants, that are opening restaurants, love to be in that kitchen, love the daily grind, and there's just people for it and people that are not for it. But every experience I've had since I left Johnson & Wales has been, I definitely want to do that more. I hate that I don't want to do that. So I think they're all worth it. There's not one bad job.
Excellent. Thank you. Spencer, Stephanie, or Matt? You want to tackle that one?
Yeah, I think, like Jorge said, any job you'll get something out of. Even if it's a job that you think is beneath you, you will probably learn so much about yourself, about the cooking side, about employees, about a lot of things. To go right out of school and to go to the 2-3 star Michelin restaurant is the dream, but don't let it be a deterrent if that's not the path that you go through initially, because you'll get there. As long as you've got a work ethic and the drive, you'll get there. Just takes time.
Thanks. Spencer or Matt?
Yeah, I mean, to echo both what Stephanie and Jorge said, I mean, everywhere you go, you're going to learn something. I had a chef at my first internship, and he told me, you know, take the good and leave the bad. Don't forget the bad, but just leave it there, because one day you're going to run or operate your own place, and you're going to have to draw upon those experiences to get through it. So, I mean, I've done it all. You know, my first job ever, I worked at McDonald's, and, you know, I was a cashier, and then, you know, I salted the fries and finally learned how to, you know, press a button to make hamburgers. And, you know, I've kind of come full circle at this point where I run a burger restaurant, and I do it all again, but now I do it on the front of the house side of things. So I've worked in 2 Michelin star restaurants in Europe. I've worked at McDonald's and everything in between. So there's really no bad place to develop yourself or your skill.
Excellent. Spencer?
Yeah, I'm going to, what the rest of the panel said is absolutely true. They're spot on, and I can't really regurgitate what they've said. But the best part is you can be able to draw upon past circumstances that you have in a particular job, whether it be right out of Johnson & Wales or 5 years down the line. my past experiences working in restaurants allowed me to problem solve for my job today when I deal with McDonald's or KFC or Popeyes or, I talk to the Fat Duck or Noma up in Copenhagen. Everything that I do, I draw on past jobs and experiences.
Excellent, thank you. This question's for Stephanie. It says, tell us about the behind the scenes of Top Chef. Are the quickfire challenges really as stressful as they seem to be? Also, how much preparation time did you get for team challenges?
That's a great question. So everything you see on TV that's not like, come on guys, let's go get in our BMW X7. Everything else is actually very real. So those 30-minute quickfires, that the clock starts when Padma says go. There's no like fluffy time. There's no cheats. It's literally 30 minutes. And so for when we're in the grocery store and they're like, you have 30 minutes to shop at Whole Foods, that's plenty of time. That's not stressful at all. It's really 30 minutes. And then for the actual like challenges and stuff, team or individual, that's all real time too. And it's super hard. I don't know what else to say about it. It's super hard because that time when you hear the challenge to the final plate, you have to come up with the dish. Like you have to get it all together, and you only have one fell swoop. So you can't go back to Whole Foods if you forgot the key ingredient, which I did once. And fortunately I had immunity because I should have been gone. But it's super real. They work from the production side, because I've seen it 3 times now. It becomes your reality, all of the rules and everything that's going on with the show. So it's super stressful and super risky to do, but it's very real, except for that BMW X7 thing. I had to repeat that like 9,000 times.
Excellent.
Be like, I don't even like the car.
All right, this next one comes from Chef Molinelli. Did you ever think about changing your major due to a class or teacher? By the way, she says this is not a question about her. Spencer.
Personally, I have not. Before Johnson & Wales, I cooked and I almost didn't go to school. I thought I was, hot shit back in the day, and, was dead set against a formal education. But I'd say if there's a circumstance where you don't like the instructor or the class, I mean, it's only temporary. That's all I can say. I mean, is it really going to matter in 5 years whether you liked it or didn't like it? I mean, you can draw, like we've said before, and the rest of the panel, even though it could be a bad situation, you can always learn from it.
Excellent. Matt, how about you?
No, to second what Spencer said, I knew what I wanted to do since I was 13 years old. I knew this was the industry I wanted to be in. I can't say that any chef instructor or teacher or boss was going to deter me from doing that. So, if this is what you're passionate about, then nothing's ever going to stop you from doing it.
Excellent. Stephanie?
No chef ever made me question what I was doing, but I probably made them question what they were doing once or twice, in all honesty. Sorry, now I have a chopstick. I'm getting all fidgety. So no, but I really gave them a run for their money. So I was talking about Chef Oxtolis earlier. On the first day of the second time I took stocks and sauces, because I, for some reason, had the mentality I didn't really have to go to school. I just had to like sign up to go. He sat me down and we had lunch together, and he was like, you got to get it together. And I was like, okay. It's like, now this humongous scary man's telling me that this is not going as planned. So now I always knew what I wanted to do. It was just, I just took a really slow process to become serious about it.
Excellent. Jorge?
Actually, yes, but it was a good thing. It wasn't because of a difficult teacher or anything like that. It was, I said earlier, I would volunteer for every single event I could ever volunteer for. And I got to work alongside Mr. Corey a lot, and he started teaching me a lot about wine, and I've always been very passionate about wine. At one point, he was like, you should become a sommelier. Like, you should really go into the wine thing. And I was like, you know, I'll stop going to culinary school and I'll become a full-time sommelier and just follow that path. And it's so beautiful, and wine and blah, blah. And then I realized I was just going to end up selling wine somewhere. And I was like, forget it. Not cool enough. I'll just drink it. But that was the one time that I was like, maybe, but didn't do it.
Excellent. All right, this next question comes from Chef Jeremy. Some jobs do not end well. How has any of you handled being fired and grew or learned from it? Who wants to tackle that one?
I guess I'll start. I've never been fired, so that's impressive just in itself. But I have had relationships with chefs and owners of restaurants that have not ended agreeably. There's been resentment or there's been issues with it. And I've definitely learned a lot about why those things happen, whether what I did to cause certain reactions, what I did to lose touch with certain people who were really instrumental in my career. And it all comes down to communication is the most important thing. Because your boss will always tell you, if he doesn't or she doesn't fire you outright, that you're on the verge. So ask for that constructive criticism. And if you don't care, spare them the pain and quit.
Spencer, did you have any of those crazy situations happen?
I've never been fired from the food service industry. I mean, back in the day when I was a teenager, I got fired from this health food store that I absolutely hated. I think we had like 2 patrons a day. It was very small, but I agree with what Stephanie said. If you're dissatisfied, you're already going to be on the verge. You're probably showing signs that you're on your way out. So save them the trip and just walk away. And make sure you don't burn any bridges if you can.
Excellent, thank you. Matt, have you ever had any situations where you learned from a bad management style or a good management?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been fired from a job either, but there's certainly plenty of bad management styles, and you know, hopefully there's a lot more good management styles. So, you know, I guess kind of just going back to what I said earlier, you know, take the good and leave the bad, and really, you know, communicate as best as possible. Pick up on the traits that a great manager is going to have. The biggest one, you know, the second Stephanie again is communication. And really, you know, if you're unhappy with something, you know, find something else that's going to make you happy.
Excellent, thank you. And Jorge, did you have any bad experiences where you left or you got fired and you decided to go into a different direction?
I've also been fortunate enough where that has never happened to me before. But, you know, I've had to let people go or be on the other side of things. And it's something I would say that Spencer touched on is, at the end of the day, it's actually a small industry. Even though it's huge yet small, and you're going to find that person at some point in your life again. You might work for them, you might work together. So I know sometimes it's very hard to leave a situation that nobody's happy about in a good way, but try your hardest to not burn that bridge, because you really never know when you're going to need to be nice to that person or even work together in the future. And that's super important.
That's great. That's definitely a great message to end the discussion with. I want to pass it back to Lori, because that seems to be the last questions in the queue. And I also want to thank the panelists, because I know that you are all extremely busy, and we truly appreciate you taking the time to spend with our faculty and our students. So Lori, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Chef. And thank you so much to our alumni for joining us for today's discussion. You're all a wealth of knowledge, and the experiences you shared with us were inspiring and so appreciated. Please remain connected with us. We're really proud of you and all that you've done in your respective roles. Students, thank you so much for your participation in today's session. Alumni Relations is pleased to bring programs like this to you. One day soon, you will yourself be an alum and able to come back to JWU to share your story, and we hope that you will. This concludes today's session. Although a virtual presentation does not lend itself to post-event mingling, please feel free to connect with one another virtually to continue the conversation. Enjoy the rest of your day. Panelists, please hold on the line for a few more minutes.